Hi, my name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of Cornwall. So I think 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, I did a video saying it might be my last video unless I've got something, a nuance or something different to say. And apart from one video I want to do, which is with Monopoly money, showing how the elite convert credit into real money, which I've gone into other videos. I'm not going to go into that now. I want to do that video, but I just need the technicalities and a bit of help to do that video. And I didn't really want to do any more videos because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of noise also, and there's a lot of good people putting the details of information out there of what's going on, and I don't see where I need to do that. But I think if there's anything different that may come up, but well, okay, I'll do a video. So a lot of people, at least for the last year or so now, have been onto what the elite call buy, borrow, die, which is how they get rich. I just wanted to go a little bit into that. Now, probably quite a few people don't understand this process now. So my book, which I'll put a link to below, Debt Slavery, The Economics of a Banking Mafia. But us, the normal working man and woman, debt, we're a slave to it because we have to pay it back by physical work. So we're working to pay off debt. So we're enslaved to our debt, like our mortgage. And we've gone into that, it's an unpayable debt collectively because of the interest. And we get taxed on our income. So we're losing, who knows how much we're paying in tax, because you've not only got your income tax, you've got your national insurance, you've got your VATs. Every time you go out and do something, there's a tax on this. You've got your local council taxes. We're keeping pennies on our pound. But the elite obviously don't do that. And I'm just going to go through quickly the process of buy, borrow, die, which probably, is out there now. No need for me to go over that. But I'm just going to say now how that's relevant into what I'm talking about and how that would disappear under my solution. So in my opinion, there isn't anybody putting solutions out there to the money system. Nobody's broke it down like I have, to my knowledge. There's only the economist Richard Werner who's out there talking about government printing their own money, debt-free, to create an infrastructure, and banks giving loans for productivity. So he's most of the way there. He hasn't solved the issue of interest, which I have, and there's other factors involved, which I'm all for nationalisation, I'm trying to take all the power away from the elite so they can't do things like buy, borrow, die. So again, for us, our house, our mortgage, we're enslaved into it. It's an asset, but we're enslaved into it because we have to work to pay for it. The elite are too lazy and they've got no imagination, and they think they're above us all, so they don't want to do that. They accumulate assets and then borrow money off the assets. So debt is a tax-free income to them because it's not classed as an income. It's credit. And again, you'd have to go into my other videos. Money, currency, and credit, they're not quite the same things, which nobody seems to understand. And when you understand the nuances, you can see this whole thing. So buy, borrow, die, they obviously buy an asset, mortgage that asset, loan money on the asset, and that it's got to be a money-making asset. So houses are a perfect thing because you put a tenant in, a tenant pays the mortgage, and every time the mortgage is paid down, you remortgage. That is a debt, that mortgage, to you, because you remortgage. But you've actually, say you remortgage £50,000. Well, you've just taken £50,000 tax-free because it's debt. It's not classed as, should we say, real money. It's a loan. It's debt. But you can do whatever you want with that. And the debt is paid by the tenants. So they've got these plans, whether they've got assets in the private names or in the corporate names, they want to keep them assets in debt. so that they're not, should we say, making profit or making as little profit as possible. The profit is taken out by keeping them into debt. The debt for them is tax-free money. It's not classed as an income, but it is an income because they can do what they want with it. They can buy a yacht with it, or they can invest what they normally do in more money-making assets. And so this is the buy, borrow, die that people are talking about. But yeah, it's a trick that people should know and understand and utilize in their individual position to try and protect themselves, but try to do it in a moral way. Which these people who are doing this they don't care, they just want to get rich. But if you've got a money-making asset and your child is struggling to get a deposit for a house, which everybody is, why wouldn't you borrow on the asset and help your child out? Because it's free money, and your money-making asset will pay for that debt. That's what most people would do. I don't think there's anything immoral by that. But what these people are doing, and again, I've gone around in other videos, if you look at the whole banking system, from the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, the IMF, central banks, it's all about privatization. Privatization means the world is being sold off. That's what it means, basically. So you'll get a loan, money created out of thin air, based on you privatizing. And I've gone in this what it's all wars about. So when a country doesn't want to privatize and nationalized, it's demonized, invaded, etc., whatever. So I've gone into that in other videos. But this is why I put forward, I go further than anybody else I know out there. I don't know anybody else who's talking about this at all. Like I said, Richard Werner is the closest, but there's other aspects that you need to go into. I'm not a socialist at all. I know that doesn't work. I've visited Cuba. But if I'm going to be part of a society, a community, the resources should belong to me, to belong to the people. Now, we kind of live in a world where societies, governments are supposed to be made for the people, by the people, but that's all nonsense, because as soon as you have an opinion that's different to the government, they don't want to know. So we know that's a joke, but at least in theory, we should be nationalizing all the infrastructure and resources. If I'm going to be part of a society, I want to own that society. As you know, as a community, we should be owning our assets, our own assets. And one person in one country shouldn't be able to buy other assets in another country. The idea of international corporations. There are nuances. So people might have, especially now in the global world, they might have one person from one part of the world and they're married to somebody else from another, dual nationality, so they can, invest in both countries. But the idea of going around the world, individuals creating companies and buying up assets needs to go. That's why you want international trading, but not international corporations. They have to go. This whole idea of nationalizing the infrastructure and resources, every country doing their own and trading off that, and then the private economy built on top of that with credit, that's interest rate, that has to go into production. It will take enormous power away from the elite. Nothing else anybody's talking about is taking power away. Gary's economics, utter muppet. He either knows what he's talking about, or worse, he doesn't, or the other way around. It's probably worse if he does. Tax the rich, yeah, as well, that's the problem. As much as I like David Icke, he keeps saying credit is money that doesn't exist. Well, it does, because we're buying our houses with it, we're buying our cars with it, so it must exist in some format, which I've gone into in other videos. The UK column were really on the ball 15 years ago with the Bradbury Brown campaign, which was national credit to build the infrastructure and Glass-Steagall separation of investment banking and your regular banking. That was a good start, but you have to go further. I've pushed on and on and on and on further where I don't know what the UK column stance is on money anymore. So there's nobody out there who has really broken down the problem, and nobody out there who's actually put a solution forward, a workable one like I have. And this is not me being a smart ass, it just is what it is. It's all in my book. You either, and in the videos for free, I've broken down the system and put a working solution that will take the power away from the elite and distribute power back to the people. Nobody's going far enough. Like I said, Richard Werner's gone so far, talks about debt-free money, talks about the problems of central banks, and talks about the issue of credit creation should be into productivity. Now that's a huge thing, because like he mentions, and I've mentioned, credit creation for assets creates asset bubbles, credit creation for consumerism creates inflation, credit creation for productivity creates wealth and stabilizes inflation. There's no inflationary process going on there when you create money for productivity, which have gone into other videos, that it isn't the creation of money that creates inflation. It's nothing at all. It's the amount of credit created in relation to productivity. So money and credit naturally takes itself out of circulation, so it's a good system. The money making scam that I've discovered, how they convert credit into real money for themselves, is literally, in my opinion, illegal money printing, money laundering, well, money printing really. That would be gone under my system. Nobody's talking about it because nobody understands it. I've tried to get that information out. I've kind of given up on that now, even though it's so unbelievably simple. So buy, borrow, die. Remember, debt is a two-sided coin. To us, it's enslavement, because we have to work to pay off the debt, and there's more debt than there is actual money or currency. To them, this is why the elite pay themselves $1 a year or $0 a year, or they might pay just under the tax threshold a year, whatever. They get their money, currency, via loans on their money-making assets. So under my system, one, the ability to accumulate assets would be massively reduced when you nationalize resources, infrastructure. The fact that you can't create international companies going around the world buying it up. And then you've got Richard Werner's, idea of money creation should only come in to back productivity. So it's beneficial for everyone. You can't, there may be some flexibility on this. Everyone might have a credit allowance, should we say. A little bit of consumerism, a little bit of treat, and having a credit card to get, it's not going to destroy the system. But when you're perpetually creating credit for consumerism and the buying up of assets, you're destroying the economy. So mine is the only solution out there, as far as I'm concerned, that challenges all that and takes all their power away. The power to accumulate money-making assets. Then their power to buy, borrow, die is massively reduced. And then you factor in credit creation should be for productive reasons only, not buying up of assets and not consumerism. Then the ability to use this system legally, which is what they do, is getting rich via debt that we pay, because the parasites, these people, that will be pretty much taken away. Now, as this is highly unlikely that this is going to come about in my lifetime, we've got to somehow find a way to get through life individually ourselves. Now, the reason I've got no gold, no silver, digital coins or whatever, because digital coins are nonsense anyway. Gold and silver, there's environmental and social destruction involved in that. I thought, right, how can I use their system for my benefit, because it's the only system we've got at the moment, in a moral way? And what we're seeing at the moment in this country is all the small landlords are being destroyed. They can't keep up with the pace of the new legislation and taxes. So your BlackRocks, your Lloyds banks, all these big investment banks and banks are coming up and buying up property. Shouldn't be allowed at all, but obviously it's being allowed. It's being made so difficult for small landlords. Now you might have some small landlords, good landlords, bad landlords. I've had both, but I have experienced landlords who might just have 2 or 3 properties as their little pension pot, who are decent landlords, who don't overcharge, who try to treat you well, and who, for me, do provide a service. But that's becoming very difficult in this country now for somebody wanted to maybe accumulate 2 or 3 little properties as their little pension and provide a decent service for decent families. Now, there's obviously lots of issues revolving around that. Landlords, they have tenants that don't pay, and all this legislation is going in favour of the tenants, but it's a bigger problem because everyone should have a home anyway. But the fines that would be put forward in that if the landlord does something wrong, well, BlackRock, they'll have the lawyers that their contracts are watertight. They won't be getting the huge fines. They can live off small profit because they're going to have thousands upon thousands of properties. A small landlord, he may as well sell up. It's just being deliberately pushed out. So whereas to get through this system, you could use buy, borrow, die on your money-making assets, but my only thing is try and do it in a decent way. If you've got a couple of flats, a couple of houses you're renting out, try and be fair with your tenants. You've still got to cover your costs. Obviously, it's not your fault as an individual. The inflation's out of control, but try and stay good human being. It's not all about gaining wealth. I don't know how I'd do it. I certainly haven't got 100 grand to put on or 50 grand to put on a deposit on a buy to let, which most people haven't. But excuse me, if people want to do buy, borrow, die, do it. But just do it in a moral way where you think, at least you're kind of providing a service as well. If the system's offering you free money, take it. But don't lose your integrity. So this is the buy, borrow, die that a lot of people have been talking about the last year or two. I don't really go into that kind of stuff because my book was really about understanding what money is, what currency is, what credit is. Once you understand that and how it functions, then you can put a workable solution. I was never too interested in what I call the economics of a banking mafia because it's a lot of gambling to get rich, which is not my motive at all. But I thought I'd just do a little video on that because a lot of people are talking about buy, borrow, die. And yes, it's real, that's how it works. But it's part of a bigger plan. Because once these people own everything, which they will, the way it's going, own all the world's assets, they will have unlimited money, currency, that they can generate tax-free to buy their super yachts and the super mansions, and we will be paying it. At the moment, we're slaves to our own debt, our own mortgages, our own car finances. We're also going to be slaves to their debt. This is the bigger picture of debt slavery. And the only way to get rid of that is to take their power to asset strip the world away from them. Nobody's talking about that. The problems are bigger than just, oh, the banks create money out of thin air. Oh, it's interest. It's a lot bigger than that. The system has to be taken down piece by piece and a system put back in where the resources and the infrastructure is owned and run by the people for non-profit out of a national credit, and people are free to create their own businesses on top of that. There needs to be ideas about housing, about accumulation of assets, about international corporations. I've solved all these problems, at least at an initial stage, at a workable stage, and all I'm hearing on the internet, this economist, that economist, utter nonsense and noise, who highlight one aspect of a problem not going to solve anything. Absolutely nothing. And you got some smart ass say, okay, I'm a smart ass, but I've put it down, I've broken it all down on my videos. And that's the truth about Buy Borrow Die. Yeah, it's part of their plan to enslave us into their own debt. And that's how they'll have the mansions and the super yachts. And they will do it because most people are too lazy to do anything about it. And they kind of deserve it in a way. So if you can use that system to your own benefit, use it, but just, keep your morality, keep your integrity. Combine asset, borrow off it, help your own child then to get on the housing ladder, which is a debt to them, but most of us at the bottom, we've got to survive somehow. But they're coming for absolutely everything. Everything they're coming for. They want to own the world. Once they own the world, they have unlimited access to, for them, tax-free money, which is debt that we will pay. We'll be doubly enslaved to our own personal debt, and without even knowing, we'll be paying off their debt. That's it.